Before we begin, don't forget to like this video, drop a comment with your favorite moment, and subscribe so you never miss another story where humanity proves why it can never be underestimated. Your support helps bring more of these tales to life. Now let's dive in. The chamber of the Galactic Council shimmered with cold starlight, its vaulted ceiling etched with constellations of conquered worlds. Representatives sat in elevated tiers, their eyes fixed on a holosphere suspended above the central dais. Within the sphere flickered the image of a vast creature moving through a devastated battlefield, its outline blurred by smoke and the scattered flames of ruined machines. The Azrath, the predator that answered to no one. The chamber filled with murmurs, fear, resentment, fascination. For centuries, empires had launched fleets against the beast, believing it no more than an oversized animal that could be chained or slaughtered. Each had failed. Cities had burned, armies had shattered, dreadnoughts had been pulled from the skies. The creature was not an apex predator of a single world, it was a force of nature that wandered between stars, untamed and unbroken. At the lower circle of the chamber, a human stood alone among the array of alien delegates. His presence seemed almost trivial against the grandeur of the hall. A man in his late 30s, his jaw marked by an old scar, his posture relaxed yet alert. Captain Elias Ward wore no ceremonial robes, no armor of polished alloys, only the weathered field uniform of Earth's Interstellar Liaison Corps. He carried himself like a soldier who had seen too much war to be impressed by marble floors and alien gold. "Human," croaked a counselor whose carapace glistened with faint bioluminescence. "You have seen the archives, yes? Tell us, what does Earth intend to do with this matter?" Elias's eyes lingered on the holosphere. The Azrath's form loomed immense, dark fur streaked with silver like molten metal, eyes glowing with their own light, jaws powerful enough to cleave battle tanks in two. He exhaled slowly as though measuring his words. "You've tried your fleets. You've tried your hunters. You've tried binding it with tech that would cripple lesser beasts. Nothing worked." His voice was steady, calm. "And you brought me here because you think a human might succeed where all of you failed." The counselors exchanged glances. Some sneered. Others clicked mandibles or shifted uneasily. None denied it. A towering avian delegate leaned forward, feathers bristling. "It is not merely untamable. It rejects dominion. No master's leash can hold it. We have lost thousands of warriors to its claws. What chance does one man have?" Elias did not flinch. "Every creature has a name. The trick is finding it, and getting it to remember." The chamber went still. Even the holographic flames crackling in the holosphere seemed to pause. His words struck differently, not like boast or arrogance but a quiet certainty forged in long campaigns, the kind of tone soldiers recognized when a commander meant business. The presiding counselor, an elder whose translucent skin revealed veins pulsing faintly with blue light, tapped the staff of authority against the floor. "Captain Ward, you understand the gravity. Should you fail, your death will be broadcast to every system that watches this trial. Should you succeed, though such fantasy borders on madness, what then?" Elias raised his gaze. "Then you'll finally see that not everything is won through domination. Sometimes survival means respect." The remark rippled through the tiers. Respect? The word was foreign in this hall where conquest and obedience were the only currencies of power. The counselor's eyes narrowed. "You will depart immediately to the frontier world where the Azrath was last seen. You will have no army, no warships. Only your own wit and whatever courage your species claims to possess." Elias gave a short nod. "That's all I need." The session adjourned, but the whispers did not stop. Delegates muttered predictions of his swift death. Others, uneasy, noted the strange calm in his tone. As Elias left the chamber, the holosphere replayed the predator's last recorded rampage. One swipe leveling a walker, one roar scattering disciplined battalions. And yet the human had spoken of names and respect, as though he knew a secret no one else had considered. That night, aboard a council transport skimming the void toward the frontier, Elias stood alone at the viewing deck. Stars drifted by like distant embers. His reflection in the glass showed a man hardened by war but not hollowed by it. He remembered the hounds he had trained in his youth, the wolves he had seen in the wilderness of old Earth. They did not yield because of chains, they yielded because of trust. Somewhere in the galaxy, a predator older and deadlier than any on Earth was waiting. Perhaps it too had once known trust, and lost it. He whispered into the darkness, not expecting an answer. "Let's see if you remember who you are." When the transport reached orbit of the frontier world, the scars of conflict were visible even from space. Vast forests blackened by fire, rivers clogged with wreckage, outposts reduced to craters. The Azrath had passed this way recently. Elias checked his gear. Simple field rations, a canteen, a knife, a sidearm he had no intention of firing. No heavy weapons, no chains. Just enough to survive the wilds. As the shuttle descended, Council surveillance drones fanned out in orbit, ready to record every moment. Billions across the networks would be watching. Elias would walk into the beast's territory alone, under the gaze of a galaxy eager to see him fail. When the hatch opened, the air was thick with the scent of ash and damp soil. Forest shadows stretched long beneath a twilight sky. Elias stepped out, boots crunching softly over charred ground. He took a slow breath, centering himself. Somewhere beyond the tree-line, the predator moved, unseen but certain. He could almost feel it, a weight pressing against the edges of his awareness, like the hush before a storm. He did not hurry. Each step was deliberate, his posture unthreatening yet confident. He carried no torches, only the faint glow of the dying sun. The forest accepted him in silence, as if holding its breath. Behind him, far above, the council watched. Some mocked, already drafting his obituary. Others leaned closer to their displays, curious despite themselves. Elias walked deeper until the scent of smoke gave way to the musk of wild growth. He paused beside a half-buried ruin of alien steel, claw marks gouged deep into its plating. He knelt, brushing ash from the scarred metal, and spoke softly as if addressing someone present. "I've seen worse battlefields. You did what you do. That's survival." His tone was conversational, steady, neither condemning nor praising. In the distance, a branch cracked. Heavy footfalls moved through the brush, slow, deliberate, too measured to be chance. Elias rose, eyes narrowing but body loose, every sense awake. The first meeting was close. The air thickened with anticipation. He could feel it watching him from the shadows, vast and patient. The Azrath was here. And Elias Ward did not reach for his weapon. He simply waited, breath steady, lips parted as though he were ready to speak, not to command but to name. The forest held its silence. The story was only beginning. The forest seemed to exhale as twilight deepened, each shadow stretching longer across the blackened ground. Elias Ward moved without haste, the silence wrapping around him like a cloak. Every instinct in his body told him he was being watched. The council's drones hovered far above, their lenses glinting faintly against the rising stars, recording every twitch of his muscles, every breath that left his lungs. Billions were waiting to see him fail. A low vibration coursed through the earth beneath his boots, so subtle at first he wondered if it was his imagination. Then came the sound, deliberate, steady, heavy. Not the haphazard stride of prey or the careless trampling of scavengers. This was measured, confident, the gait of something that feared nothing within these woods. Elias stopped beside a smoldering log and crouched. His scarred hand brushed ash from the dirt, exposing gouges torn deep into the soil. Claw marks. Not fresh but not old either. His gaze lifted. The canopy above shifted as if some immense weight moved between the branches, bending them without snapping. The predator was circling, silent despite its mass, choosing how close to come. He did not speak yet. Words were tools like knives and timing mattered more than volume. Instead, he pulled a ration pack from his vest, broke it open with careful, deliberate motions, and laid a piece of dried meat on the ground. The gesture was small, unthreatening, but intentional. He wasn't offering bribes. He was making space. A growl rolled through the trees. Not the warning of a beast startled, but the deep resonance of a creature reminding him whose domain he had entered. It was followed by a hush, the kind of silence that falls when even the insects know to hide. The Azrath stepped into view. It moved like a nightmare given flesh, shoulders higher than Elias's head even while crouched, fur black as wet stone, streaked with a metallic sheen that rippled when it moved. Its mane resembled smoke given form, shifting with each breath, eyes glowing a pale, eerie silver. Muscles slid beneath its hide with a fluidity that belonged to predators honed over millennia. Every step it took seemed to darken the air, as though the world itself bent around it. Elias did not rise. He remained crouched, his heartbeat steady though his skin prickled with instinctual terror. He had seen men break under far less. The Azrath lowered its massive head, nostrils flaring, its gaze locked on him. The meat at his feet was ignored. It was not interested in food. From orbit, the council watchers erupted into overlapping voices. Some clamored that the human would be torn apart within moments. Others leaned forward, analyzing every movement, trying to decipher intent where there had never been any before. The predator had never paused for anyone. It killed and then it left. That was all. Elias finally spoke, his voice low, even, carrying not as command but as invitation. I know who you are. The predator froze. It was so slight a shift most would have missed it, the faint tilt of its ears, the narrowing of its eyes. Elias pressed on, careful with every syllable. They've called you monster, scourge, demon. They think fear is all you are. But that's not your name. The Azratha's breath came heavier, a growl building deep in its chest, the forest trembling with the sound. It took one step closer, claws digging into the earth, jaws parting just enough to show teeth longer than daggers. Elias did not flinch. His pulse thudded, but he anchored himself in memory, the wolves of old Earth, the huskies he'd trained, the veterans who'd told him that names carried weight heavier than steel. He leaned forward slightly and whispered a word unearthed from the fragments of ancient archives, syllables so old most of the council no longer recognized them. The name. The effect was immediate. The predator stopped mid-stride. The growl faltered. Its head tilted, ears twitching as if the sound had pierced through layers of instinct. For the first time, the galaxy's deadliest predator did not advance. Above, the council chamber fell silent. The delegates who had mocked him earlier now stared wide-eyed, their disbelief pressing against the edges of panic. Billions across networks leaned closer to their screens, struggling to comprehend what they were witnessing. The impossible had occurred. The Azrath had listened. Elias kept his tone soft, steady, not daring to push. You remember it, don't you? Not theirs. Yours. The predator's eyes narrowed, not with hostility but with something far more dangerous, recognition. Its chest expanded with a deep inhale, its massive frame trembling once before it sank onto its haunches, not submissive, not defeated, but present. It no longer loomed as executioner. It waited. Elias lowered himself to the ground, folding his legs beneath him, adopting the calm of a man by a campfire rather than a soldier before a beast. His scarred fingers traced lines in the dirt as he spoke, not stories of domination but of earth. He told of wolves that once ruled the forests until they learned to run beside humans. He spoke of lions that guarded their prides, of hounds who slept by the hearts of warriors. His voice wove pictures of predators not as tools or enemies, but as companions, guardians, kin. The Azrath did not move closer, but it did not leave. Its breathing steadied, heavy but rhythmic, eyes reflecting the faint glow of starlight through the canopy. When Elias grew quiet, the predator lowered its head onto its paws, gaze never leaving him. In orbit, the drones transmitted every moment back to the council. Chaos rippled through the chamber. Some screamed that this was witchcraft. Others whispered that the impossible bond was beginning. No one could deny the truth. The predator had spared him. Elias sat in silence, muscles relaxed but ready, eyes never straying from the beasts. The fire he had kindled earlier guttered low, throwing flickers across the predator's dark mane. He knew this was not victory. Trust was not given in a single night. But this was the first step, and it was more than anyone else had ever managed. When the night deepened and the forest sounds cautiously returned, distant insects, the whisper of leaves in the breeze, the predator shifted slightly, a sound rumbled in its chest, something between a growl and a sigh. Elias whispered the name again, softer this time, almost a reassurance. The beast closed its eyes. Billions of eyes across the galaxy widened at the sight. The Azrath, scourge of empires, destroyer of armies, had not only spared a human but had allowed itself to rest in his presence. Elias leaned back against the trunk of a tree, exhaustion seeping into his limbs. He would not sleep, not yet. The predator's trust was fragile, delicate as glass, and one mistake could shatter it. But as he sat there, fire dying to embers, the weight of what had begun settled over him. For the first time, the galaxy's untamable force had paused. Not for chains, not for fear. For a name whispered by a human. The forest breathed again, alive with cautious life. The council raged and argued in their chambers. And Elias Ward, alone beneath the stars, prepared for the long road ahead. The bond was not forged. Not yet. But the first thread had been tied, and neither man nor beast would ever be the same. The embers of the small fire smoldered as dawn pushed against the horizon, turning the forest canopy into a lattice of pale gold and shadow. Elias Ward had not slept. His back ached against the rough bark of the tree, his eyes heavy but unyielding. Across from him, the predator lay still, its colossal frame curled like a mountain given breath. Each inhale sent a shudder through the ground, each exhale rose as a faint mist in the chill morning air. It had not moved to strike him. It had not left. That in itself was more than the council had ever imagined possible. Elias studied its form, every ripple of muscle, every scar that mapped its hide. He thought of the soldiers who had once described war machines as unstoppable, only to learn that machines break like everything else. But this creature, no, not creature, not anymore, this being radiated permanence, a kind of ageless defiance. Yet beneath its fearsome bulk, it had a name. And something in its silver gaze told Elias it had not forgotten. The forest around them began to stir with cautious life. Small, timid animals re-emerged, emboldened by the predator's stillness. Birds croaked uncertainly from high branches. Even the breeze seemed less heavy, as though the night's tension had thinned. Elias unwrapped another ration, not eating but setting a strip of dried meat between them on the earth. A gesture, not an offering. The predator's nostrils twitched. It sniffed once, then turned its massive head away. Elias allowed himself a faint smile. "Didn't think you'd take it," he murmured. "You don't want what's given. You want what you choose." From far above, council drones circled, recording every moment. Their signals crackled back to the chamber where councillors argued violently. Some demanded Elias be extracted before disaster struck. Others whispered, shaken, that perhaps humans held a key no one else had considered. The thought terrified them more than the predator itself. Elias remained unaware of their words but not of their presence. He knew eyes were on him, waiting for spectacle. Yet he refused to perform. His focus was here, on the immense beast whose trust he needed to earn. Trust could not be forced. It had to be lived, one choice at a time. By the second day, patterns emerged. The Azrath shadowed him at a distance when he moved through the woods. When Elias drank from a stream, its reflection appeared behind him, unmoving, watchful. When he made camp, it circled once, testing, then settled just within sight. It allowed proximity but not closeness, acceptance but not intimacy. That was enough for now. At night, Elias told stories. His voice carried softly across the clearing, not for the beast's comprehension but for its recognition of rhythm, of calm tones instead of threats. He spoke of earth wolves who howled at the moon but ran beside men. He spoke of war dogs who saved their handlers from ambushes, of wildcats who refused cages yet lingered at the edges of villages. He wove images of predators neither mastered nor broken, but respected. The Azrath never answered, but its breathing slowed when he spoke, steady as a drumbeat in the silence. On the third evening, the fragile balance was tested. Elias caught the faint crack of branches from beyond the treeline, too deliberate to be chance. He stilled, hand drifting to the sidearm holstered at his hip. The predator rose in the same instant, muscles bunching, ears twitching. Its head swung toward the disturbance, lips pulling back to reveal a mouthful of white knives. Shadows moved between the trees. Armed figures emerged, armored in council insignia but carrying weapons not sanctioned for observation. Mercenaries, sent by factions who feared what Elias might accomplish. Their leader, a scaled brute with crimson eyes, raised a rifle and sneered. "Human," he barked, "step away from it. The council may tolerate this charade but others do not. We will end both you and that abomination here." Elias rose slowly, every muscle taut, the predator pacing at his flank like a storm contained by sheer will. "You shouldn't have come," Elias said, his voice low. "This isn't your fight." The mercenaries spread into formation, rifles leveling. One fired a warning shot into the soil at Elias's feet. The Azrath roared, the sound shaking trees, scattering birds in a frenzy. The mercenaries faltered, their bravado cracking. "Hold your ground," their leader shouted, though his voice trembled. "It bleeds like any other beast." The predator lunged before the order was finished. It moved with terrifying speed, a black wave crashing through the clearing. Armor split like paper, screams cut short by jaws and claws. Elias shouted the name, his voice sharp, commanding not with force but with familiarity. The predator's frenzy checked, its strikes redirected. It tore through the mercenaries with calculated precision, sparing Elias's body even when chaos raged inches from him. Within moments, silence returned. Blood soaked the earth, broken weapons lay scattered. Only Elias and the predator remained standing. The beast's mane bristled, silver eyes blazing with fury, but when Elias whispered the name again, it lowered its head, exhaling hot breath across him like an exorcised storm. From orbit, the drones transmitted every detail. In the council chamber, uproar shook the walls. Some called for Elias's execution, claiming he had turned the predator into a weapon. Others could not tear their eyes from the impossible truth. The Azrath had listened. It had fought not against him but beside him. Elias stood among the carnage, chest heaving. He looked into the predator's eyes and saw more than raw power. He saw choice. This wasn't submission. It wasn't slavery. It was partnership, fragile but undeniable. "You didn't need me to fight," Elias murmured, voice roughened by smoke and adrenaline. "But you chose to fight with me." The predator blinked slowly, then did something unthinkable. It lowered itself until its head nearly touched the ground before him. Not a bow, not obedience, but acknowledgement. Recognition between two hunters who had survived together. Elias reached out, stopping just shy of contact. He would not touch without permission. The predator did not move away. It let him linger in that space between man and beast, where trust was neither forced nor begged, but quietly given. Above, the council had no words. Their galaxy's most feared predator had bent its will not to chains, but to a human's voice. And if it could choose him, what else might humanity be capable of? The fire crackled weakly behind them, the night air sharp with smoke and blood. Elias's muscles ached, his body screamed for rest, but his mind was clear. The bond was real now, stitched by danger and sealed in trust. The predator had made its first choice and it had chosen him. The council might rage, factions might conspire, but none could erase what had happened here. For the first time in its history, the untamable had acknowledged another. And as Elias watched the predator close its eyes and lie beside the embers, he knew the true war was only beginning. The forest no longer whispered with suspicion when Elias moved. The Azratha's shadow followed at his side, vast and silent, as though the earth itself walked with him. The bond between them had shifted, no longer fragile curiosity but a living thread, tested in blood and affirmed in choice. Yet trust was never safe in a galaxy that feared what it could not control. Word spread faster than fire through dry brush. Streams of council broadcasts replayed the moment again and again, the predator fighting not against but beside a human, its fury checked by a whispered name. To some, it was heresy. To others, it was revelation. But to those who built their power on fear, it was a threat too dangerous to ignore. On a distant stronghold world, banners of a warlord unfurled in the hot wind. Karath the Iron Fang, commander of mercenary legions and enemy of every council decree he had ever encountered, watched the recordings in silence. His face, marked by a dozen battles, twisted into something between hunger and rage. If the predator could be swayed, then whoever held its allegiance could dominate the stars. He would not allow a human, a species of upstarts barely tolerated at council meetings, to wield such power. His orders were swift. Armies mobilized. Walkers armed with plasma cannons rumbled across launch platforms. Orbiters darkened skies as they prepared for deployment. Elias and his newfound companion would be made examples, crushed beneath overwhelming force. Their story ended before it could spread further. On the frontier, Elias sensed the storm before it arrived. The Azrath paced more restlessly at night, its mane rippling like smoke disturbed by unseen winds. Drones buzzed more frequently above the canopy, their red lenses glinting in the shadows. He knew the council could not leave him untouched. Trust between man and predator was a wildfire, too dangerous to let grow unchecked. The attack came at dusk. The ground trembled with the approach of war machines, their silhouettes emerging between the trees like towers of steel and fire. Armored soldiers advanced in disciplined lines, their rifles glowing with charge. From the sky, shuttles descended, flooding the forest with harsh white light. Elias stood in the clearing with only his sidearm holstered and his knife strapped to his leg. Beside him, the predator stretched to its full height, eyes burning like molten silver, its roar splitting the evening air into shards of terror. The warlord's voice thundered across loudspeakers, dripping contempt. "Human, you have polluted the galaxy with your lies. That beast bends for no one, it will devour you as it has devoured all who came before. Tonight you both die and your myth with you." Elias did not answer him. He spoke instead to the Azrath, voice low, steady, intimate. He whispered its name. The great head lowered, not in submission but readiness, muscles coiling like a storm about to break. The battle ignited with fire and thunder. The first volley of plasma lit the clearing, searing through trees and earth. Elias moved fast, instincts born from years of war guiding him. He darted between shadows, laying traps with the precision of a hunter, tripwires fashioned from lines of his own kit, charges planted at choke points. He was not the predator's master. He was its partner, shaping the battlefield into a weapon they both could wield. The Azrath erupted from the trees like a force of nature. It tore into the nearest walker, claws rending armor, jaws clamping down with a sound like shattering mountains. Soldiers screamed as the beast swept through their ranks, scattering formations, crushing steel beneath its weight. Elias fired in concert, not at random but with purpose. Each shot found the joints of armor, the exposed gaps between plates. Where the predator's fury created chaos, Elias's precision carved order. They fought as one, instinct and discipline woven together. Above them, council drones transmitted every detail. In the chamber, counselors shouted over one another, their fear turning into frenzy. Some demanded fleets be dispatched to annihilate both. Others sat in stunned silence, watching the impossible unfold before their eyes. The warlord himself descended to the battlefield, clad in armor bristling with spikes, wielding a blade that shimmered with energized edges. His voice boomed, filled with arrogance. "Beast, I will show this human what true mastery looks like." He charged, blade arcing toward the predator's flank. Elias's shout split the air, the name carrying like a commandment. The Azrath turned with terrifying grace, intercepting the strike with its claws. Sparks erupted, metal shrieked against bone. The warlord staggered as the predator's roar engulfed him, its fury so close he could feel his armor rattle. But even the unstoppable could bleed. Cannons fired again, searing plasma cutting through the predator's side. The Azrath stumbled, bellowing, silver eyes flaring with pain. Elias's heart clenched at the sight of its blood soaking into the soil. He sprinted into the chaos, weaving through fire and ruin. Smoke burned his lungs, heat licked at his face, but he would not falter. He reached the predator's side, pressed his hand against its mane, and whispered the name again and again, not as order but as promise. "Stay with me. I'm here." The predator's body trembled. For a moment, it seemed the great beast might collapse beneath the weight of its wound. Soldiers advanced, hungry for the kill. Elias drew his knife, planting himself in front of the predator as if his frail human body could hold back an army. His voice was hoarse, defiant. "You'll have to go through me first." The warlord laughed, striding forward with his blade raised. "You think your words matter? You are nothing human." But the name mattered. Elias spoke it once more, pouring every ounce of will and memory into the sound. The predator's eyes snapped open, burning brighter than before, fury rekindled by trust. With a roar that shook the forest to its roots, it surged to its feet, wounds forgotten, strength reborn in defiance. It struck like lightning, jaws clamping around the warlord's blade arm, ripping through steel and flesh. The warlord screamed as he was hurled aside, broken against the ground. Soldiers wavered, their formation crumbling as fear overcame discipline. The predator did not stop. Together, man and beast drove back the tide, tearing through war machines and scattering the enemy like chaff before a storm. Fire lit the forest in every direction, but within that inferno, they moved as a single force, indomitable. When the last walker fell and the last soldier fled into the burning trees, silence settled once more. Smoke hung heavy, flames crackled, the stench of blood thick in the air. The Azrath stood panting, sides heaving, silver eyes dim with exhaustion but alive. Elias leaned against its shoulder, every muscle trembling, his body battered yet unbroken. Above, the council watched in horrified awe. Their galaxy's most feared predator had not only fought beside a human but had risen from death's edge because of him. And Elias Ward, scarred soldier of Earth, had stood against an army not with chains or weapons of conquest, but with a name and a bond. The predator lowered its massive head, pressing it gently against Elias's chest. For a moment, man and beast simply breathed together amid the ruin, two survivors in a galaxy that had never expected either of them to stand. Elias closed his eyes, whispering, "We're not finished yet." The council would not let this stand. Factions would gather, conspiracies would bloom. But the warlord's defeat had already written a new story into the stars. The untamable had chosen, and its choice had shaken the galaxy. The council chamber had never been so full. Rows of species packed the vast amphitheater, their voices a storm of fear, outrage, and awe. Holoscreens replayed the battle in an endless loop. Elias Ward standing against legions, the predator rising from the brink of death at his whispered call, the warlord broken beneath jaws no one had ever imagined could be commanded. The sight rewrote every law the council had built its dominion upon. For centuries the Azrath had been legend, the unmastered beast, terror of wild worlds, breaker of armies. Empires had tried chains, poisons, psychic control, all failed. But here was proof that the impossible had bent. Not to domination but to something worse, to choice. A predator had chosen a human. Elias stood alone at the chamber's center, a scarred man in simple field fatigues. His knife still hung at his side, blood-stained from the warlord's forces. Behind him, the predator loomed, a towering silhouette of shadow and silver flame, scars fresh across its hide. Its presence silenced even the loudest accuser. The creature had not been brought here in cages or shackles, it had followed. A counselor with translucent skin rose, voice sharp with venom. You cannot allow this heresy to stand. A beast obeying a human? What will happen when his kind breed more of these abominations? Entire fleets could fall. Another struck the floor with a clawed hand, snarling, "It is not obedience, it is corruption. No predator has will to kneel. He has twisted it." Elias raised his head, his voice steady though every gaze pressed down on him like iron. "You think I control it? You're wrong. I don't command it. I don't chain it. I spoke its name and it chose to stand with me. That choice wasn't mine, it was its own." A ripple of unease spread across the chamber. Some sneered, others shifted nervously. The idea of choice was more dangerous than mastery. Chains they understood. But allegiance freely given? That shook the foundations of their rule. A new figure rose from the upper tier, draped in robes heavy with insignias. Counselor Droz, one of the most ancient and unyielding voices. His words cut like steel. "No creature of this galaxy has ever chosen humanity. You are unproven, impulsive, and weak. And now you expect us to believe the most feared predator alive has pledged itself to you? What? Tricks. The beast must be destroyed and you with it." At his signal, armored guards entered, weapons humming with lethal energy. They advanced in a semicircle, rifles raised toward the predator's heart. The Azrath growled, a sound that rattled stone pillars. Its silver eyes blazed, claws flexing against the chamber floor. Elias stepped forward, lifting a hand, his body angled between rifles and beast. He did not shout. His voice carried because it did not waver. "If you fire, you'll prove everything you fear. You'll make the predator your enemy. And if that happens, not one world in your dominion will be safe again." The predator's breath thundered behind him, hot and wild. Elias could feel the weight of it, the storm it was ready to unleash. He reached back, brushing his hand against its mane without looking. "Not for them," he whispered, voice meant only for the creature's ears. "For me. Hold." The predator stilled, every muscle quivering with restrained fury. It lowered its head, a gesture not of defeat but of faith. The chamber froze. Every counselor, every soldier, every watching world saw it. The galaxy's deadliest beast restraining its wrath because a human had asked. Not ordered. Asked. Droz's voice cracked with outrage. "You see, that is subjugation." Elias turned his eyes on him, steady as stone. "No, that is trust. And it terrifies you because you can't control it." The silence that followed was suffocating. For the first time in living memory, the council had no script to follow. Centuries of power balanced on fear were unraveling. The predator was not their nightmare anymore, it was their mirror reflecting their fragility. Then came the breaking point. One of the guards, nervous hands trembling, fired. The shot lanced through the air, a beam of burning light streaking toward Elias's chest. The predator moved faster than thought. In a blur of muscle and fury, it swept Elias aside, the beam scoring across its own flank instead. The chamber erupted, screams, shouts, weapons charging. The predator roared, the sound shaking the foundations of the council's seat. Elias hit the floor, vision spinning, ears ringing from the concussion of sound. He pushed himself up, rage cutting through the haze. He stood again, knife drawn, voice raw. "Stop. Every last one of you, stop." And for reasons none could explain, they did. Even in their terror, they froze, drawn by something unyielding in his tone. Elias turned, facing them all, predator's blood dripping at his boots. "You claim to lead this galaxy, but you don't understand it. You think power comes from chains, from armies, from fear. You're wrong. Power comes when something strong enough to kill you chooses not to. Comes when trust outweighs terror. That's what this predator shows you. That's what humanity is." The predator pressed its head against his shoulder, towering yet gentle, as though to seal his words. The sight broke something in the chamber. Voices that once screamed for extermination now wavered. Some counselors lowered their heads. Others trembled, undone by the enormity of what they had witnessed. Counselor Droz's face twisted with fury, but even he faltered beneath the weight of the moment. He tried to speak, but the chamber drowned him out with a storm of voices, some demanding change, others in awe, none united in their old certainty. Elias sheathed his knife. His voice softened but carried still. The predator obeyed no master. Not yours. Not mine. But it answered when I whispered its name. Remember that. Because today isn't about me or this beast, it's about what comes next. You can fight it or you can learn from it. But you won't stop it. The chamber trembled with argument and fear, but the tide had turned. The galaxy's order had been fractured, and no decree could repair it. Later, when Elias left the chamber, the predator walked beside him, wounds bandaged but spirit unbroken. The halls emptied before them, crowds parting like waves. Whispers followed, some fearful, some reverent. At the great doors, Elias paused, looking up at the towering creature. Its silver eyes met his, steady and knowing. He placed his hand against its mane once more, not as commander, not as master, but as equal. We started something today, he murmured. And I don't think either of us can stop it. The predator rumbled deep in its chest, not a growl, not a roar, but something that sounded almost like agreement. Together, man and beast stepped into the light, their shadows stretching far behind them, long enough to touch every corner of a galaxy that would never again be the same. The legend of the unmastered predator was broken, rewritten by a human's whisper. And in its place, a new legend began, one that would echo through generations, carried on the breath of those who had seen it with their own eyes. The council had feared what humanity might unleash. They had not imagined humanity would survive long enough to earn devotion. Elias Ward did not look back. The predator did not need to. The future lay before them, vast and perilous, but theirs to walk together. And in that moment, the galaxy held its breath.